This is one of my favorite short pieces. I wrote it when I was in a relationship with someone who meant a great deal to me, but it was very obvious that things were probably going south. We were going two different directions, and things were not going to last, regardless of how much we cared for each other. And at the time, she introduced me to this song by Lorena McKenna called The Old Ways. And it inspired me to write this piece, which was obviously somewhat based on our relationship and on her and just on this whole situation. And it came from images I got when I listened to the song. So this is the sea. Keep in mind this will sound a little strange because it's written from the point of view of a woman and, well, I have a rather male voice, but use your imaginations. I walked with him as if to a funeral. Our footsteps trailed like tiny black animals in the sand, disappearing into the horizon. Turning my head, I watched them bleed into the setting sun. His large, mine small. He didn't look at me, didn't look back. Instead, his green eyes, black in the waning sun, watched only the sea. Watched as if searching for a memory. White foam licked our feet. Water bathed the shore. And when it touched our toes, his hand stiffened against my back. He shifted and pulled away an inch or two. Only his will seemed to keep him with me now. We were naked, the civilized world miles away. Another world, as it were, that stopped at the sandy line. The grass beyond lay dark and dead, a forest of shadows unable to brave the unyielding sand, and I knew it never could. Out in the bay, dolphins and whales glided among its glistening depths, while seagulls watched from above. There were more than I had ever seen, but they remained silent, even as they jumped and splashed without sound, granting us a final moment together, out of respect for what he had once been. I feared to glance at his face again. Each time he ever stared into the water was a look away from me and my world, and a prelude to our final moments. There had been so few, and now they played in my mind, passing in an instant, like one short melody one never tires of hearing. But the waves never ceased, refusing to ebb, even for us. The sun lay dead behind us now, and the full white moon filled the sky so close and bright I felt we might walk into it and disappear beneath its surface, where I could hold him close forever in the milky void of nothingness. He stopped. As he did, so did my heart. He turned, staring out at the sounding waves, and I knew he was listening. Listening to their murmurs and whispers, like the distant past, calling in the deep's rumbling voice only the past can possess. His longing eyes tore away from the sea and looked into mine. Instead of his watery home, I saw only myself in them. I saw my dark hair, my quivering mouth, my own brown eyes refusing to blink, terrified of missing even one moment of his stare. And as a tear ran down his face, at least I knew I was not the only one with mourning in my future. He ran a hand down my neck, his light fingers running the length of my spine to the deep small of my back. His gentle hand became firm and pulled me close. Cold wind blew over us, but I felt warm. His eyes closed, and so did mine, and he kissed me. Kissed me in the way only a dying kiss can be. Only the end could call forth such passion and finality and wanting and loathing and pain and love in one lingering touch. Holding my hand, He turned to the waves. I stood with him as the pounding sea calmed, as if stilled by his gaze. The jumping fish vanished. The dolphins. The whales. The surface leveled the smooth glass in the moonlight that cast a tapering path to the edge of the sky. It grew cold. Only his fingers touched mine now. As if summoned by his deep breath, a great island rose against the horizon, gliding along the moonlit path until it stopped a few hundred yards from the shore. The floating mountain grew a head and neck. Its yellow eyes opened, and I saw it was a turtle. One of the great ones spoken of by old women and their crazed rantings. The kind that crawled the earth before men had fire, before poets had words, before even my lover had been born. The great beast opened its mouth like a cave widening across the side of a mountain, and it called. It called in an echoing wail, saying all in one deep moan. It said peace. It said freedom. It said death. It said home. Then the serpents came, the monsters of the deep, the creatures of myth that thrived only at the very depths of the depths. They all rose from the smooth water, churning it to foam so thick it might have been cream. The kraken came and spread its tentacles up to the moon. Seahorses, tall as men, rode the foamy water, and I swore they carried riders upon their back. They screamed like whales calling, bringing with them more creatures of the deep, ones I could not name or even describe. I did not fear, not standing with him. He knew them all. They were the residents of his world, the creatures of myth, the past of the past, the very edge of forgotten dreams. And in one great voice of wails and waves and screams, the sea called to him. He answered with his eyes. My lover bowed his head. I knew he was thinking of me. Knew there was still love in him his world could never erase. Knew his chest was tight like mine. I begged myself not to cry as his fingers slipped from mine, and he stepped onto the water. 100 small turtles or a scaled serpent must have lain just beneath his feet as he walked the surface. Wind blew through his long hair, kicking it up over his shoulders, and I knew he had found his wings. His step didn't have the longing sadness in it, the iron anchors that always seemed to bind his ankles. I knew even there where our worlds met, a line that ended at the ebbing shoreline, that his blood rushed again with the nearness of home. The tears I'd held back now rushed out to meet the waves, salty water to salty sea. Colossal serpents rose into the sky above him like moving arches, rushing pillars of colors, spines, and scales. They lined his path, a kaleidoscopic hallway, circling beneath and over again, aquatic heralds summoning a long-lost prince. As his body began to descend and vanish into the sea, he turned. His eyes shone bright for a moment in the moonlight, linking us for the last time, and I knew he could never forget, no matter how long he spent beneath the waves. He turned back to the sea. Our link broke. I stood my ground, didn't fall to my knees as I thought I would. My eyes remained on him. I watched the foaming waves and the miraculous creatures, and the ancient mountain-like turtle he walked towards. Most of all, I watched his head and shoulders, so straight and broad as the water accepted its prodigal son. As he vanished beneath the surface, I knew I would never feel peace so long as my feet were dry. I had grown too close to his world. I had touched too deeply the sea. What does all that mean? I don't know. I guess I'll let you figure that out.